Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. June 27th, 1905. The Black Sea, off the coast of Kherson. The crew of the Imperial Russian battleship Potemkin is gathered on the deck, standing at attention as the wind whips the flags fluttering above the main mast. No man speaks. The crew are assembled here because they have finally had enough. Enough of the poor treatment, the incompetent leadership. Enough of a corrupt system designed to crush their spirits. The detachment of Marine Guards chamber rounds into their bolt-action rifles. The crew of the Potemkin is gathered here because they have refused to eat their dinner. A bowl of borscht prepared from rancid meat, covered in bugs. Commander Ippolit Gilyarovsky says, any man who refuses to eat this meal will be executed by firing squad. There's a long, tense moment. No man moves. Then, suddenly, one sailor steps forward. Grigory Vakulinchuk. He yells, brothers, what are you waiting for? Take their rifles! Commander Gilyarovsky grabs a rifle from a Marine's hands. He aims it at Vakulinchuk. He fires. Vakulinchuk falls. That's the last straw. Another Potemkin sailor, an instigator of the protest, Afanasy Matyushenko, charges ahead. He's unarmed, but he rushes towards the nearest Marine, intent on seizing his weapon and exacting his vengeance. Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week, the show where we tell the badass history of badasses. I am joined today once again by producer / part-time co-host Andrew Jacobs, who has been with us from the beginning and has appeared on many episodes at this point. Andrew, thank you for coming back on again to do another pinch hit.
Yeah, it's a requirement, but I feel like I've had the summer off. It's been a little while.
I mean, that is like a testament to the preparation that we've been putting into the show recently. Yeah. I feel like sometimes you always kind of get called in at the last minute when it's like, oh, I need somebody to co-host this episode with me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that leaves you a little bit behind the eight ball in terms of preparation, but that's okay.
Don't you know it?
But we are revisiting territory we have touched on before. We're going back to the reign of Tsar Nicholas II, who we talked about in our Rasputin episode.
Ooh, that's a fun one. Good times, Rasputin.
Yes, good times in Russia. That's the subheader for this episode.
Good times in Russia. They are few and far between.
I took 3 years of Russian language in college, and we were kind of learning the hello, how are you? My name is Ben, blah, blah, blah. And our teacher brought in a friend of his who was this Russian guy, and we were trying, it was like Russian 101 or whatever, and we were trying to practice with him. And he was like, hello, how are you? And we said back, we're good, how are you? And he started laughing hysterically. And I was like, what? He's like, nobody says good, how are you? When you say how are you, the answer is this. And he says, I think, which means nothing. Like, how are you? Nothing. We're like, nothing? That's what dark. You say? He's like, yeah, everybody's going to think you're a total nerd if you say everything's good. They're going to think you're a psycho.
I mean, at least they're honest. Nothing. Mm-hmm. Good, how are you? Nothing. I am nothing. I am disappearing into the void that is communist Russia.
Yes.
Interesting.
So that's the world we're getting into today. I have a book coming out on the 19th of August.
Is this a plug?
Yes, I'm going to plug my book here. That's what I'm doing. It's called Putin versus Zelensky, the Russo-Ukrainian War, why it's happening and how it all got started. And so it's kind of a primer on the Ukraine war. So why, I guess when the war started, there were a lot of people who were like, I don't understand why these guys are fighting. Aren't you guys all just Soviets, right? And so I wanted to do a book. It's designed for older kids, young adult.
Okay.
Here's the history. And it turns out actually Russia and Ukraine are two totally different places that have different languages and people, and have actually been fighting each other for a long time.
First of all, the impression of Russia that we have is this idea that's been designed and built over years, going back to like the Cold War, of like, I'm sure some of it's true, like Russia being this dark, miserable place where it's always snowing and, the food is bad and it's life is hard.
Well, that is going to happen in this episode. Like the food's going to be bad and life's going to be hard.
I think that comes from a place of truth. But what I think a lot of Americans didn't know much about Ukraine at all until this war broke out, right. Except for the fact that, in Risk, the Ukraine is weak, right? But it's not the Ukraine, just FYI, people, not the Ukraine.
It was the Ukraine region of the Soviet Union or of the Russian Empire, but the country is called Ukraine.
Yeah, so it would be great to hear a little bit more about Ukraine and Russia and what this is all about.
Yes. And what you were talking about, the everybody kind of thinking it's one thing, that is the Russian attitude towards it. And it's the official, in the Russian Federation currently, that's the story. And so I do try to tell both of those.
Except my understanding, tell me if I'm wrong because you wrote the book, is that Ukraine is actually older than Russia.
Yes. So it is interesting. They both trace their heritage back to the same place, Kievan Rus, which was founded in Kiev, which is in Ukraine. But it was also founded in Novgorod, which is in Russia. And so this is the time period that, and I talk about it a lot in the book. I'm not going to get into it too much in this episode, but this is the time period where Russia looks back and they say, look, we were all the same thing. We were all together. We were one people. We're just reunifying. And the Ukrainians will say, no, actually, this was our thing. And you guys co-opted it and then wrote us out of it. You guys stole our history and then wrote us out of it. And we've been trying to get it back ever since.
Maybe Ukraine should be taking over Russia.
Maybe.
I don't know if they want that.
I don't think that's a good idea either.
All right. So
it's never okay to invade a foreign country.
Yeah. So today it sounds like we're going to talk about like a formative moment in their story.
Yes. So with a lot of these stories about the history of the Russo-Ukrainian War, it goes back. They kind of start with the breakup of the Soviet Union. But I go way back because I'm a history guy, of course. So I go back to Kievan Rus. But this is kind of a formative story in the history of both countries. And it involves both countries. And we're going to tell it today because it's actually just a really badass story of crazy things. It's the most famous military mutiny, like naval mutiny in history. And it's also like formative for film, which is why I'm happy to have you here to talk about it too, Andrew.
Cool.
So we are going to talk about the mutiny aboard the battleship Potemkin and the role played by the leader of the mutiny, Afanasy Matyushenko. So we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into it.
You nailed that pronunciation, by the way.
I had to read the audiobook for my book. So I read the audiobook.
Oh, great.
And so that was like you just sit in a room with three other people staring at you with red pens, and they make a little note every time you mispronounce something or like mess up what you're reading, and then you have to go back and do it again. So you're
saying I've been producing this wrong. I need a red pen over here. All right. I think people need to hear that though. Then it's not just a book, it's an audiobook. All right.
It's an audiobook, yes.
So get the audiobook if you like listening to the sweet dulcet tones of Ben Thompson.
Yes, and you want to hear me talk for like 20 hours.
Yeah. All right. Now let's go to the ad break.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, welcome back to Badass of the Week. We are here with Andrew Jacobs, producer and co-host. And Andrew, we were talking about Rasputin the last time you and I were in Tsarist Russia, but we're going to go back a little bit before that to 1905. So you kind of mentioned at the top, you had some ideas about what Russia is like. And I mean, how do you feel the world is in 1905 for the average Russian person? It's not a trick question.
I mean, oh man, it's cold. It's always snowy. everything is uphill, and they're eating probably lots of potatoes. It's, and everyone is miserable. That's what I got.
That's generally not inaccurate when we're talking about Russia in 1905. It's in a bad state. They have the Tsars. They have Tsar Nicholas II, who has taken over a long line of Tsars going back to Peter the Great, who we've also talked about on the show, and Ivan the Terrible, and all of these famous Tsars. The average person, so they liberated the serfs, who were basically like medieval feudal serfs. They had that until 1865.
Oh, wow.
And so that's not that long ago in 1905. There were people alive who were enslaved basically at this time. And, liberating the serfs didn't exactly make their lives better immediately. They still were still kind of tied to the land. They didn't have a lot of mobility. They didn't make a lot of money. And, when we talk about the Russian Revolution, and we're going to go into a Russian Revolution here. This is not the Russian Revolution. This is a Russian Revolution in 1905.
Yes.
It's just one of them. It's a big one, but it's not the one that when you talk about the Russian Revolution.
Probably lots of kids working, I'm sure.
Tons of children. You had animals living in the house with you. Your boss could literally punch you in the face if you didn't think you were working hard enough. If you broke your arm, like sticking it into a machine, you would just get fired. If you got sick, and you couldn't come into work because you were sick, they could just fire you. There's a lot of messed up stuff going on.
They need OSHA.
Yes, you needed OSHA. You needed any kind of labor union, any kind of anything, right?
Just a little something. Yeah.
Yeah. Sick time. These are requests that we all take for granted today.
Yeah. No paid vacation time. Yeah.
Workers' comp, any of that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So this Orthodox priest decides he's going to make a petition for here's 10 reasonable requests we want to make to the Tsar to improve working conditions in Russia. He writes these down. He gets tens of thousands of people to sign them. And then he's going to, in January of 1905, he is going to walk these to the Tsar's palace, the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. He's going to walk this stack of signatures up there and hand it to the Tsar and be like, here are some things you can do to improve the quality of life of the people in your empire. And as this group of people approaches the Winter Palace opens fire on them with belt-fed machine guns and kills hundreds of people.
Talk about shooting the messenger.
Right, an unarmed Orthodox
priest. We have a note for you.
Yes, with an angry letter, and they're responded to with rifles and heavy machine guns. Lots of people are killed. Thousands are arrested, because this is another thing that we take for granted in the United States right now, is that you are allowed to say, hey, maybe we should be doing things differently, and that's not an imprisonable offense as it was in Russia at the time.
Mostly.
Yeah, I guess. The Tsar was God, and if you opposed him in any way, you were going to jail or worse. So, okay, that was really bad press for Tsar Nicholas, though, and it was making people mad, and people are starting to revolt. People are starting to be angry. The aristocracy is clamping down. The big factory owners, the big farm owners, they're clamping down. And this is where we're going to meet our main character for this story. All of that, what we were talking about, the Bloody Sunday, there's all these, famous propaganda paintings of it. All of these, it's a lot of blood on snow because it was very snowy. So that's the general vibe.
Because it's always snowy in Russia.
Right, like you said, you have to wait in line for cheese and then get shot with the machine gun. Okay, so our story is going to be down south. There is a guy named Afanasy Nikolaevich Matyushenko, and he was born in Kharkiv in 1879. His father had been enslaved as a serf, was liberated, but wasn't finding a lot of mobility. So Matyushenko grows up in Ukraine, and Ukraine down south, it's big area, wide steppes, wheat farms. We're kind of on the southwestern edge of the Russian Empire. He grows up in a 15-foot wide farmhouse where he lives with his parents, 5 brothers and sisters, and the pigs and geese from his family have to live inside because it's too cold outside. So not great. He hated it. So he tried to move around. He tried to find jobs working on railroads, at docks, gets a job in a factory where he has to work 12-hour days, 6 days a week for no money, then goes home to his dirty corporate housing apartment where he shares a bedroom with a bunch of his coworkers.
When you say no money, is that just
Very little, extremely little money. Yeah.
Not
He
literally
saves up,
no money.
it takes him like a month and a half to save up to buy an accordion because he wants to like play music. So he buys an accordion and he starts playing accordion
so
music.
Russian.
So Russian. It's going to get more Russian because the guy that's like down the hall from him is a Tsarist officer who gets annoyed by all the accordion music and just smashes it one day. So Matyushenko's a hothead. So he gets his buddies together. And when that officer's walking home a couple days later, they jump him and they beat him up.
Wow.
But then the Tsarist officer gets his buddies and then they throw Matyushenko in jail and beat him up while he's in jail.
Oh, wow.
So, like you said, he gets hospitalized. He's beaten extremely badly.
The man just wanted a little music.
Just wanted to play the accordion, and it's just, how are you? Nothing. Yeah, we're laughing about it, but it's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, I got to get out of here. I got to do something else. Maybe we have this big, massive Russian war machine. Maybe I will join the Navy and find a better life there.
I'm gonna join the Navy. It'll be better. Maybe. Getting beat up over an accordion and then thrown in prison is pretty rough. So maybe. Yeah.
Okay, well, no, it's not better, turns out. He gets stationed on board the battleship Potemkin, which is the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet. There's two main fleets in Russia at the time. There's the Baltic Fleet up north in the North Sea, and then the Black Sea Fleet is in, obviously, the Black Sea. So the Potemkin is a battleship. It's 378 feet long. It has two batteries of like massive 12-inch cannons. It's got 16 smaller guns. It's got 9 inches of cemented heavy armor. It's a big symbol of like the Tsar's military might and naval might. And you would think that would be a pretty good gig. It's 1905. This ship just entered service. It's brand new, state of the art, the largest ship in the fleet.
But I just want to weigh in. Was it a dreadnought or a super dreadnought?
It was pre-dreadnought, but it was like that style. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure the etymology of that, but pretty badass.
Dreadnought sounds great.
We need things called dreadnoughts, just saying.
Yeah, the Potemkin doesn't sound super threatening, but it's named after a famous general from Catherine the Great.
Well, not super threatening when you consider the other use of the word Potemkin.
Right, yes.
The whole story there is something like this. Prince, to impress Catherine the Great, at one point built a fake village along the path to show how prosperous and great things were going, right? And so it ended up earning the name Potemkin Village, which is like, it's all for show. It wasn't a real place. It was just false whatever,
like flats for a movie.
Yeah, kind of like flats for a movie. So like every now and then you hear it, someone will call them like it's a Potemkin this or a Potemkin that. They were referring to the village and like facade of the thing, the fakeness of the thing, and not the ship, which is obviously famous in its own right and entirely not fake.
I feel like this is a good time because this is, as much as this seems like it's the most badass ship in the fleet, it's all a little bit fake because in 1905, we have the Russo-Japanese War kicking off. And so Russia, like you said, it's this huge place, right? It spans all the way to the Bering Sea. And at some point, Japan was on the way up. And the Japanese they were trying to make movements into Manchuria. But in order to do that, they needed to deal with the Russian base over there at Port Arthur. And so the Japanese attack Port Arthur, which is a Russian base on the sea. They take it easily. The Russians dispatch that Baltic fleet that was up north in the North Sea, sails all the way around the Horn of Africa, sails all the way out to Japan to go teach Japan a lesson. The might of like half the Russian Navy goes out there and they get completely stomped at the Battle of Tsushima. We're going to talk about this battle at some point in the future, but they get annihilated. The Japanese cross the T, they blast, they lose 4 ships and they sink the entire Baltic fleet in one afternoon. And now Matyushenko and his guys are out here on the Potemkin. They're doing gunnery practice and they're starting to think maybe we're next. Maybe our idiot officers are going to send us out there. They're still working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. They're still getting kicked in the head every time the officers think they might be daydreaming. They're eating bad food. They're getting beat up, they're getting whipped and stuff for disobedience or whatever. And now, our incompetent leadership is going to send us off to some pointless war on literally the other side of the earth to go get blown up by the Japanese. Right? Like, I really don't feel that excited about dying for this.
Yeah.
So, okay, Matyushenko and his guys, there's one, the main instigator of the disgruntled sailors here is a guy named Grigory Vakulinchuk. And he's been reading some books about various economic and political philosophies.
Ooh.
Yeah. They're making pamphlets, they're handing them out, they're talking about it in their bug-infested, bedbug bunk rooms. And there is some talk about maybe we don't have to put up with this. Maybe the working class should get together and overthrow their bosses and create a new society where we don't have to put up with this anymore. And
what kind of book is this? Sounds radical.
It was pretty rad. Yes. And so, the propaganda on the battleship Potemkin is that these were all communists, right? They were all reading Marx and Engels, and they all became radicalized communists, and this was the beginning of communism. In reality, the sailors here had a big mix of ideologies because, Russia couldn't really agree on that's why we have the Russian civil wars, because people couldn't agree on what they wanted after they overthrew the Tsars. They knew they didn't want the Tsars. Some people wanted democracy. Some people wanted a more like, a democratic socialism. And there were some communists. There were plenty of communists. Matyushenko was one of them. And so was Vakulinchuk. But they start talking about, hey, like, maybe we don't have to put up with this. If there's 700 sailors on the Potemkin, and there's not that many officers, maybe 24. So they start talking about how and what they might be able to do to overthrow their leadership and take over. And this is going on all over Russia at this time. There's little pockets of revolution all over the place. The Bloody Sunday was in January. And by the end of June, we've gotten reports. There's revolutions that are getting put down. There's strikes in St. Petersburg. There's strikes in Odessa. There's strikes in Moscow. All around Russia, there's discontent.
Now, at this point, Ukraine and Russia are
all together. The Russian Empire. Yeah, everything's together. It's the Russian Empire. And so the Potemkin is right off the Ukrainian coast, off the coast of Kherson. And they're doing gunnery practice on some little island out there. And at some point, a crew goes aboard to buy food, because that's just what you do, right? They need to feed the crew. They go aboard. They go to buy some stuff. They buy a bunch of meat. And as they're carrying it back to the ship, the meat is really disgusting. There's bugs and stuff in it. It's green, it's crawling, it smells bad, it looks bad. As they're carrying it back, the guys are like, dude, we're not seriously going to eat this, right? They get this big chunks of rotten meat back to the ship. And the officers take a look. The captain is a guy named Evgeny Golikov, and his executive officer is kind of the guy who the men hated the most. His name is Ippolit Zhilyarovsky. And Zhilyarovsky looks at this and he's just like, this is an opportunity to do something about it. Because I think he knows that these guys are unhappy and that there is some kind of conspiracy brewing. And I don't think it's an accident that he's like, this looks fine. So they hang the meat off the side of the ship in the sun for the whole day. And so all the men who are getting on and off and on the shore can see it and smell it. And it's gross. And there's bugs and stuff on it. Then he gets the ship's doctor to look at it, and the doctor's like, this looks fine. I don't think this will make you sick if you eat it. You can serve it.
Yeah.
Then they give it to the ship's cook. The ship's cook's like, there's no way I'm cooking this. I'm not doing it. And they're like, no, just put it in a borscht. Make a good traditional borscht. Throw this meat in there. It is protein. It'll be good for the bugs, or just extra protein. It'll be fine. He says no. So anyway, they cook it up.
He says no. So anyway, they cook it up.
anyway, through some means it gets cooked up again, and they serve it to the men. This hot bowl of borscht. I don't know, is borscht hot or cold? It doesn't matter. It's gross. Just picture the grossest.
Yeah, the meat doesn't need to be rancid for me to be like, I'm good. Borscht, I'm good.
I'm good. Beet soup with extra grubs. Yeah. So nobody eats it, and the officers get angry about this. So they're like, all right, I do think they suspected mutiny. And so they bring everybody up onto the deck of the ship. And so everybody gets up there, and the captain, Golikov, he gets up there and he says, okay, anybody who is willing to eat this, step forward now. And so maybe a few guys step forward because they're just whatever, completely beaten down by society.
They're so hungry.
Yeah, they're so hungry. There's one guy like, dude, whatever, this looks fine.
Yeah.
I've eaten way worse back home. And then nobody else does. And so he says, okay. So he calls out the Marines, and it's like a dozen Marines come out with their rifles. And he says, does anybody else want to step forward? Nobody else steps forward. So he gets the leadership of the revolution, Matushenko, he gets Kulinchuk, he gets a couple of these other guys, and he lines up like 30 guys, and he's getting ready to execute them by firing squad. And, there's this kind of moment where the Marines are pointing their rifles, the sailors are standing there, they're waiting for the order, there's the drum roll, the cigarette, and the blindfold or whatever, and Kulinchuk says, brothers, what are you waiting for? Take their rifles. And all 700 sailors rush the officers and the Marines, and they get the weapons away from them. And there's just like a riot.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I just want to, before we proceed, I just want to say, I have taken part in a standoff exactly like this before. Me, my daughter.
Oh, yes. Do you want a timeout?
And let me just say, threatening them if they do not eat their dinner, that is not an effective. I'm pretty sure she's rushed me, and one of these days she hears this, she's going to realize that she can overthrow this household. So yeah, I don't know if that was the right tactic. It was the threats. Eat your dinner or else we'll shoot you. It doesn't go over well.
That's why we only have the one kid, because we don't want to be outnumbered.
Oh, yeah. I think my son would be like, I'm good. He'll eat anything. He's one of those other sailors who's like, I'm hungry. What is this? So we're good. I think we still have him on our side.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so now there's a fight. Jilirovsky, the commander, the executive officer of the ship, he grabs a rifle from one of those Marines and shoots Kulinchuk, the leader of the rebels, killing him. Matushenko gets the rifle away and throws Jilirovsky overboard. The sailors overtake the officers pretty quickly. It takes less than an hour. The captain is executed. The doctor who said the food was okay is executed. 5 other officers are executed, and all the others are locked in the ship brig in the prison. So yeah, we're off the coast of mutiny. Yeah, we're off the coast of Kherson, and Russian warship, go fuck yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
Can we say that on the podcast? I don't know.
We can't.
Okay. Yeah, and so there's this moment though where Matushenko was he wasn't the leader of the rebels, but he was the most aggressive of them. He was the one who was like the most serious about, we got to do this. Like, let's do this. He was just waiting for a chance to go and like take over. And now he's kind of finds himself in charge because Kulinchuk's dead. And everybody kind of looks to him like, all right, Matushenko, what do we do? And he's like, no, I don't know. We have the largest warship in the Russian Navy under our command, and I don't really know what to do with it. So
I will say, I know where this story's going. It's not the choice I would have made. I'm thinking, you got yourself a ship. You're in the Black Sea. Head towards the Bosphorus Strait, right into the Mediterranean. I'm thinking Santorini, Crete, Ibiza. Yeah, a little further into. Yeah, man. Like, come on. Like, just there are nicer places to be.
Yes. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, but so that's not what they do.
That's not what they do. They pull down the Russian flag of the Russian Empire. They raise up a red flag, which means revolution, right? It's at this time the universal sign for revolution. So they fly up the red flag, and they're like, "What are we going to do?" So, they sail to Odessa. Right now, they're all wanted men. If they've already signed their own death warrants, so they've got to go. They can't change their minds now. So they show up and they go to Odessa, and they didn't pick this by accident. Odessa was chosen because it was having a general strike at the time. There was a lot of unrest in Odessa. It was a port town in what's now Ukraine, and big city, lots of unrest, lots of rioting, lots of strikes. The crew of the Potemkin thought maybe this would be a good place to start. So they sail into Odessa harbor. And this is like, this is not one of these things where phone calls got out and people knew what was going on. So the people of Odessa who are protesting the Tsar and are rioting and are trying to like make change in the city, they wake up one morning to see like a warship, this 380-foot battleship rolling into the harbor with the red flag flying above it. And they're like, what is up with this? This is awesome. And so they go running down to the docks. They go down this big giant stairway, which will come into play later. This big giant stairway that leads from the city down to the docks. And the ship pulls up. They take Vakulinchuk's body and they leave it at the bottom of the stairs with a note that's like, he died for the people. And all the people, like the revolutionary people of Odessa, come down. They bring food, they bring supplies, they bring coal for the burners, they bring whatever they got. And they're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. The Potemkin's here. The revolution has begun. We're going to get rid of the Tsars. This is going to be great. But it's hard to beat the system. The system is engineered to keep the people down in this empire. And before long, the army shows up. And it's not like local PD. It's not like local cops. It's not the guy at the end of the block, right? It's the Cossacks.
Oh.
And the Cossacks, there are a number of Cossacks. There are a lot of Ukrainian Cossacks, but these are not who shows up. These are Cossacks from a very distant part of the empire who have no connection to any of the people that are living here. And they're showed up to like, hey, get these people in line by whatever means you would prefer.
Yeah.
And so the army shows up, the Tsarists show up, the revolutionaries show up from around the area because they're like, oh, the warship's here. So it ends up being...
It's a party.
Right, it's a party. The Potemkin showed up to try to get some support because they thought they could get some supplies from the people of Odessa. They come out to help. The army shows up. Now there's fighting in the streets. Some warehouses get set on fire. The Cossacks and the Tsarists start opening fire on the civilians. The civilians are opening fire back when they can. There's fighting, there's rioting. People are getting trampled. In the movie, there's that famous scene where they're all...
Baby carriages going down the stairs.
Baby carriage going down the stairs. I have to say that like my first experience with that scene was when they did it in The Naked Gun.
Oh.
They do a parody of it in one of the Naked Gun movies.
Interesting.
I did not get it at the time. But
now you,
just thought it was funny.
Say that, I remember that. It's funny, I actually just saw the Naked Gun, new one last night. But I would say my first experience with that scene is The Untouchables. They do the same thing. It's the baby, carriage out of control going down the stairs, which for, people who know comes from the movie the Potemkin. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so they kind of, most of the fighting was in the city itself rather than on those steps, but
sure,
it's much more cinematic. So
for those listening, go onto YouTube and just, Google in Battleship Potemkin, movie scenes or Odessa steps scene, and you can watch it. And it's really incredible filmmaking for the time.
Yes, I think you can see the whole movie
probably
now. I think the whole movie is available on YouTube. And it's definitely worth watching. I was going to talk about it a little later, but it was made by a guy named Sergei Eisenstein, and he is kind of this pioneer of Soviet cinema. He was brought on to kind of make a propaganda movie about what's going on here. Look at how bad it was. The Tsar was like, this is the beginning of the communist revolution. This is this glorious uprising of the people against the oppressors. And he made this movie, but in doing so, it's a silent film with the title cards and stuff for the dialogue, but he kind of created a bunch of things that we use today in movie. Like he created the idea of the montage. Mm-hmm. I can show you 4 or 5 images that are kind of related and your brain will follow what's happening.
Yeah.
Stuff that we like we were talking about before, stuff that you would take for granted when you watch a movie now.
Yeah.
But old movies before this were kind of, let's film the play, let's film the stage performance. Mm-hmm. And he could be like, I can show you a picture of a guy's face, and then I can show you a picture of food, and then your brain will make that connection that this guy is thinking about food.
Yeah.
So he kind of pioneered a lot of that, and Potemkin is kind of this masterpiece of cinema in that he was doing a lot of things that nobody else was doing before. It's kind of hard to grasp that when you go back and watch it now, but at the time everybody's mind was blown because I was trying to talk to some young person about what The Matrix did for movies the other day, and I was like, you don't understand, like it was totally all this stuff has been done everything has been done since then, but when that first came out it blew my mind.
Mind blowing. Yes.
Okay. So that's the massacre at Odessa. So, right, the army shows up, the revolutionaries show up, there's fighting, a lot of people are killed. The big part of the warehouse district catches on fire. Matyushenko and his guys, they're still on the Potemkin. They don't want to leave the ship. There's not much they could do. They can't just open fire because they can't shoot into the city without hurting their own people. And there's not much they can do to help here. So they sail away. They leave because they're like, we're causing too much trouble. We got to get out of here. Yeah, we're out. They sail away, and on their way out, they fire their main battery into the city at this theater where the leadership of the Cossacks and the Tsars were supposed to be meeting. So they heard word that they were going to be meeting at this theater. So they hit it with an artillery shell from the ship on the way out of town. Cool.
Hey, I mean, why not?
Yeah, they hit it. Killed a couple people. I don't know if they were the right people, but okay. So he leaves and they're like, where do we go now? Oh, I don't know. Let's, like you said, let's keep going east. So they sail out and the entire rest of the Black Sea fleet is there waiting for them. So the Baltic fleet's been destroyed. This is the flagship of the Black Sea fleet. It's the biggest ship. It's the battleship, but there's a whole 2 squadrons of cruisers and destroyers waiting for them.
Yeah.
And so everybody kind of looks to Afanasy Matyushenko and they say, what do we do here, right? We can fight them, but this is we'll lose. We can try to run. I don't know if we'll get away. Is this last stand? Do we surrender the ship? What do we do? And Matyushenko says, let's just sail right at them.
Okay.
Let's just sail right towards them and let's just see what happens.
Oh.
And so he sails right towards them. He doesn't fire. He doesn't point his guns at anything. He kind of keeps everything straight ahead, sails straight for these ships. And these different cruisers and destroyers, the officers get out on the deck. They get all the guys like battle stations. Everybody loads their guns. Everybody aims their guns. And as the Potemkin keeps getting closer and closer, the officers are like, okay, when they reach, 800 yards, open fire. And the crews don't fire. And they're giving orders ready, aim, fire.
Oh,
nothing.
Interesting.
The crews don't shoot.
Yeah.
And the officers are all kind of having an aneurysm, oh no.
Uh-oh.
And the crews, not a single one of those ships opens fire on the Potemkin. They lower their guns and they don't shoot. It's like a moment of solidarity among the sailors. They aren't going to shoot at their own men for doing what a lot of them have been thinking about doing.
Yeah.
And so one cruiser actually does arrest their officers and put them in the brig and join the Potemkin.
So for cool.
Yeah. So for 2 or 3 hours, there's a ship called the Georgi and it joins the Potemkin. They arrest their officers and put them in the brig. But I guess some of the officers are very convincing and they convince the men to release them and give the ship back to the officers, which they do.
Yeah.
So for 2 or 3 hours, it's a fleet of 2 warships. But the Georgi eventually changes their mind and go back to the Tsar.
We'll make you better borscht, we promise.
Yeah, no, look, those guys, they were asking for it, but look, I promise nobody's going to be decapitated if you let us out.
Yeah.
Please let me out. Just that Pirates of the Caribbean scene where he's got the bone and the dog.
Oh, yeah.
So they sail to, like you said, let's get out of Russia. There's no way. They try to go to a couple little towns in Russia, and everywhere they go that's in the Russian Empire is ready for them now. Word has gotten out. Our artillery opens fire on them as soon as it can, and they can't get close to anything. So they start to run out of fuel. They start to run out of food. They go to Romania, which is, the next country over on the Black Sea to the west. And Romania is like, yes, we will give you guys political asylum here. We won't send you back to Russia, but you have to surrender us the ship. And they say, okay, fine.
Good deal.
Before they give the ship up, they try to sink it, but it doesn't work out. The Romanians are able to save the ship and they send it back to Russia, who renames it.
Oh,
they name it something else.
Sent it back to Russia. Awfully diplomatic of them.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really want to start a war with the Russian Empire. Yeah. And so, here's your ship back. Nicholas II renames it, which is kind of his answer for a lot of things. He renamed St. Petersburg because, he renames a bunch of stuff. Whenever things don't go well for him, he just renames it and hopes it'll get better. And so Matyushenko and his guys, they are exiled into Romania, and the Potemkin is returned to Russia. And this was kind of this wild standoff, this wild mutiny of these guys who kind of weren't really expecting to have a revolution, but they had one, and they took a battleship, and they had a stare down with the entire rest of the Russian Navy, and a lot of them got away with it. So that's kind of badass, I think.
Pretty badass. In the final scene, I'm imagining our main character now in an apartment building in Romania, and he takes out his accordion and he starts the accordion, and then all of a sudden someone bangs on the wall and goes, "Hey, you, shut up in there!"
Don't make me come over there.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "Oh, here we go again."
Yeah.
No, it doesn't actually work out that well for Afanazy Matyushenko. He meets up with Lenin, who was also in exile at the time. He gets kind of real serious into the communism thing, and he decides he's going to go back to Russia to kind of be this like revolutionary hero, because he's like, change needs to happen in Russia. He's this big hothead guy. He's like, I'm going to go back. I was like the Potemkin guy. I'm going to like incite revolution. The Tsar says like he offers an amnesty for any Potemkin mutineers who want to return. He's like, it'll be okay. You can come back to the country. No problem. Everything will be cool. We'll all be good. And so he's like, yes, I'm going to go back and I'm going to like, share Lenin's newsletters, and I'm going to like inspire people to do what I did. And the second he enters the country, he's arrested and hanged.
Yeah.
So he's hanged in 1907. And though not everybody is killed. And the last survivor of the Potemkin mutiny was a guy named Ivan Bischoff. He ended up bouncing around. He started in Romania. He ended in Ireland, where he opened a fish and chips shop. That was pretty successful. And he died in 1987.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where the story ends.
Yeah.
I don't know. Several cities in the Soviet Union, including Sevastopol, which is the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet, they have streets named after Matyushenko, and the Soviet Union named a minesweeper ship after him in 1969. He's a character in the movie Battleship Potemkin, and he's kind of held up as this, at least especially in the early days of the Soviet Union, he was held up as this early martyr of the revolution, this early hero who helped overthrow the Tsars. So
great.
Yeah. So that's him. That's the Battleship Potemkin. That's the mutiny. I don't know. What's the lesson here?
Borscht, no good.
Borscht, no good. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, and I'll try to tie this in because I'm going to shamelessly plug my book once again at the end here, that this kind of is a contributing factor to the early days of the revolution, which is going to cause some headaches between Russians and Ukrainians, even now, 100 years later.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think Borscht, no good, but in reality, I think there's like a lesson about like, you trained a whole bunch of guys to fight, and then if you treat them like crap, they might decide to fight you. So the least you can do, we're talking about Borscht here, the least you can do is like feed your troops well.
Yeah, feed your troops well. Treat your employees well.
It's a really low bar, actually.
Yeah, don't punch your employees.
Don't punch them.
It's not cool.
No rotten meats. Like, don't be dicks. That's the maybe they won't mutiny.
All right, Andrew, thank you for helping me tell this story. It's always fun to have you on here.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, we are going to be off next week, the week of Labor Day. We have people traveling, and we're going to take a week off. So we'll be back the week after that with another Badass. So thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are me, Ben Thompson, Dr. Patricia Larish, and Andrew Jacobs. Writing is by me and Pat. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Mixing and music and sound design by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeartRadio. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and tell your enemies. And please leave us a rating. We'll be back next week with another one.